In many ways, it has been a winter of discontent on the streets of Boston. The drug and gang crisis cast a larger, darker shadow.
And while city leaders attempt to deal with the problem, they are hindered by a crisis within a crisis, what some believe is a crisis of confidence in the Boston Police Department. It stems from the controversy over police searches. News 7's Miles O'Brien has spent the last few months looking into the controversy of stop and frisk, part one of Boundaries of Fear Crossing the Line.
A new line is drawn and crossed nearly every day.
We want our kids to live. We want them to grow old.
He's 13. We get all his blood on him.
But the victims are younger, the crimes more brazen.
The fear is just steadily building.
The motives are more trivial: loose change, gold jewelry, or simply settling a score.
It's the gangs. Everybody's just after everybody.
Why? We just going for
turf. I guess that's what it is. Turf, respect, you know.
Daylight is no longer an antidote. Home no longer a guaranteed refuge.
People are afraid to come out of the house. They're afraid to go in their place. Even in your houses, it's not a good idea anymore.
Badges in blue, once symbols of authority, have become tempting targets.
It's getting to that point. I mean, I'm not saying bringing the National Guards, but it's getting to a point where there's no safety anymore. I mean, when you start shooting at a police officer, you're willing to shoot at anybody.
In many ways, Boston's problems are the nation's problems. An explosive mix of economic despair, parental neglect, and judicial gridlock has created a drug and gun problem in every major American city. But here there is another potent ingredient. Here there is an unresolved crisis of confidence in the police department.
What they've done wrong and what they still continue to do wrong is to throw a blanket over the African American community. They treat all black and Hispanic and people of color as if they are the perpetrators, and they don't discriminate.
To understand the allegation, you must first look back to last year. As we told you then, Boston police launched and maintained an aggressive assault on street gang members.
We know who these people are. We know how many are in each group. We share information with other units in the city, and we stay on top of them.
Everybody put your hands on the wall. Get your hands on the wall.
I live right there.
Everybody get your hands on the wall. I know where you live.
There was some tough talk, too. Captain Bobby Johnson, commander of District 3 in Area B, told a reporter, people are going to say we're violating their constitutional rights, but we're not too concerned about that. If we have to violate their rights, if that's what it takes, then that's what we're going to do.
He got angry. He got angry because he got sick and tired of seeing the bodies laying in the street. He got sick and tired of seeing the kids laying in the street. He got sick and tired of seeing old ladies not being able to sit in front of their houses anymore. And he made a statement out of anger. But that's all it was a statement.
Everything hit the fan from there. They all said that we're wrong, and that's it.
But that wasn't it. In late August, Superior Court Judge Cortland Mathers added fuel to the fire when he dismissed gun charges against a Roxbury teen on the grounds it was an illegal search and seizure. In his ruling, Judge Mathers said the Boston police have adopted an aggressive policy of deliberate harassment of known gang members and those thought to be associated with them, including stopping and searching on site.
These were stops without articulable suspicion. These were stops because they were young and they were black and they were there.
They lose the case, that's their fault. That's not the judge's fault. They shouldn't have lied. And now all the pressure comes on the judge, but he did within the law what he was supposed to do within the law. He's not supposed to change the law because they're supposed to be gang members.
My wife's been shot, I've been shot.
Then in October, the Stewart story began to unfold. By the time of Chuck Stewart's apparent suicide in January, elected officials and activists in the black community charged police with trampling on rights in pursuit of the black suspect apparently created by Stewart.
We feel that this policy is repressive. It is not in the best interest of our community. We are anti-crime. We don't like the violence. And we feel that the community has to mobilize to do what's necessary to see to it that it stops. But then at the same time, we do not like the repressive actions that are going on.
We have a lot of young people who are being disrespected, who have done nothing to deserve it. And that's wrong.
The fact of the matter is that once a police department begins to act illegal,
we begin to lose a foundation of authority within the society.
But police say it's statements like that which undermine their authority.
When they knew we were aggressive and they knew we were on their case and they knew we had a united community behind us, we didn't have the problems we're having.
The statistics support the theory. So far this year in Roxbury, North Dorchester, and Mattapan, the number of homicides has doubled over this time last year. And while the crime rate goes up, morale among the officers who police these neighborhoods plummets.
It's not worth getting out of your cruiser. I don't stop and search anybody. I don't frisk anybody.
Are there other officers who feel the same way?
The majority of them. We have too much to lose.
Who's controlling the streets of Boston now, the gangs or the police?
The gangs, most definitely the gangs, because the police, they ain't doing nothing. Anytime it's a murder, it's red gang murder, gang violence.
If community leaders get up and talk as if the police are the enemy, it certainly gives sanction to gang members who feel that they ought to be able to do anything they want to do, even to a policeman.
Those who are critical of Boston police discount the link between stop and frisk and increased crime. They say it was a relatively quiet summer last summer because of the mayor's youth campaign. They say the crime increased in September because that campaign came to an end. In his Safe Neighborhoods plan, Mayor Flynn suggests the youth campaign be expanded to a year-round effort. Ardit?
Miles, does that plan address the issue of stop and frisk?
Yes, the mayor suggests that there be better community relations between the police and the community, and it suggests that police be better trained and educated, and also that the community be better educated as to what is a legal stop and frisk.
Thank you, Miles O'Brien.
Part 2 of Boundaries of Fear Crossing the Line. A look at the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. It's deceptively simple. It protects us all from unreasonable searches and seizures.
But translating that into practical police work is not as easy. Just how far police should go has ballooned into a controversy in Boston. Tonight, Miles O'Brien looks at the law and some of the people who claim Boston police are ignoring it.
We don't play. Spread your legs. What's this, your allowance?
To a passerby, it might look like harassment. But this sidewalk scene on Blue Hill Avenue tells only part of the story. This is the rest of the story.
Jesus Christ, that's a high caliber round. Yeah, it looks like a 45 slug to me, too.
A high caliber round fired into the rear door of a passing Boston police cruiser. A close call for the officer at the wheel.
Is there any question what they're aiming for here tonight? Not to me, none whatsoever. Aiming for a blue and white, that's what they're aiming for. They're aiming for us.
The officers in the cruiser believe the shots were fired from this corner, but the frisking produces no weapons.
If we shot at you, why would we stay on the app? We ain't that dumb, right? Ain't no black person gonna shoot a cop and still walk up and down the street.
They had no real right of throwing us against the gate, pulling their guns out.
But a law professor who reviewed our videotape of this stop and frisk disagrees.
Considering their own concern for their safety, considering the level of intrusion on the individual, it seems to me it would probably be reasonable.
The U.S. Supreme Court drew the line on stop and frisk in 1968.
What they're entitled to do when they believe somebody has a weapon or somebody may have a weapon is to feel anywhere where there might be a weapon.
In Terry versus Ohio, the court said an officer who encounters suspicious behavior he can clearly explain is entitled, for the protection of himself and others in the area, to conduct a carefully limited search of outer clothing in an attempt to discover weapons which might be used to assault him.
Turn around!
But so-called Terry stops have strict limitations, as this October memorandum to all officers from Police Commissioner Mickey Roach indicates. The stop must be based on more than a hunch or mere suspicion or good faith belief. It must be brief and not turn into a custody situation normally associated with an arrest. And the frisk may never be conducted for the purpose of finding evidence, and cannot extend into the pocket or inside articles carried by a person.
The law affords us police officers all sorts of rights. There's no reason why a policeman can't do the job right.
But allegations persist that Boston police are not doing the job right. Come here to Grove Hall, and most everyone you talk to will tell stories of stops without apparent suspicion, seizures without probable cause, and searches which go well beyond the line drawn by the Supreme Court.
I didn't understand what's going on, so I just really ignored them, not even knowing that they were police officers.
There's good reason for that. Kevin is blind. He believes he was searched illegally on 2 separate occasions. Once as he stood in front of his father's convenience store in Dorchester, another time as he walked with a friend in Roxbury.
police came over to me, they pulled me over to the car by my jacket, and one put their knee, like they forced me with their knee to get up on the car. They had no reason to think that I had committed a crime.
Basic, common knowledge.
And whenever police hear from teens, they hear disturbing allegations of cops arbitrarily pulling down people's pants, even though the law only allows strip searches after an arrest.
They just be right in the middle of the street. Police be like, pull down your pants. And I just been like, you know, the first time I saw it, I was shocked. I was like, can they really do that?
They don't care if it's girls, females, even if your mother's right there, they'll make you drop your drawers right there. Is that violating your rights or what?
I haven't seen it. If you were in a drug den or something, and they would drive his ass, you did strip him, looking for more drugs. But on a regular stop and frisk, no, you just pat it down for weapons.
If you have a complaint, bring the complaint. If not, then shut up about it.
In fact, police say no one has filed a formal complaint with them.
If we report it, who they got to, you know, like, consider, gang member or the police, no matter what. The police can come right now, put something in your pocket, arrest you. If you go to the station, who they got to believe?
The reluctance has prompted scenes like this.
So they had you take your shoes and socks off?
Yeah.
And then they looked in your shoes and socks?
Members of the Black Lawyers Association are taking statements from people who say their rights have been violated by Boston police.
He opened the door, and I was going to get out the car, and then he pulled the gun out and stuck the gun to my head and told me, don't move or I'll blow your effing head off.
I think the number of calls that we even get is just a small fraction of the incidents of these illegal search and seizures.
Attorney Jackie Church works for the law firm representing 5 plaintiffs suing the city and 10 Boston police officers in federal court on the grounds they have instituted a search-on-site policy. The suit asks for class action status because it alleges the violations are widespread.
It's so commonplace in their communities that they don't even think of it as unusual anymore.
But Boston police deny there are wholesale violations.
There have been, I suspect, incidents where becoming a little aggressive, over-aggressive, you know, they certainly are right on the line. And perhaps on very few occasions, I honestly and firmly believe that, have slipped over.
If it happened in a small amount. That doesn't justify it, but let's deal with those bad police officers that were doing that, and let's move on. Let's move on.
But many people on both sides of this issue believe it will linger until the class action lawsuit gets its day in federal court in 2 weeks. No matter how many times Boston police deny widespread constitutional violations, their critics remain unconvinced. Whatever the ruling, it will carry with it the credibility of a federal judge. The judge can either silence all critics or force police to make changes. Either way, the city can then move on. R.D.?
Thank you, Miles O'Brien. Tonight, part 3 of our News 7 special series this week, Boundaries of Fear, Crossing the Line. And tonight we see what an influence perception can have.
In the case of stop and frisk, the widely held perception among black teens is that Boston police are violating constitutional rights in their fight against drugs and gang-related violence. That perception has created a tense atmosphere on the streets, and as Miles O'Brien reports, a breakdown in communication may be fostering more violence.
Camille, black jacket, green pants, supposed to have a gun.
I'm back like a rebel making trouble. I'm an assassin, kicking ass on a double. No.
The self-proclaimed gangsters riding high.
Action is my identity. Whoever you be, don't.
Kids is walking around with guns the cops don't even got. The police can't stop the gang. Cops be getting shot at and don't even do nothing. What could they do? They can't stop the gangs. The gangs is gonna take over.
The cops warned to stop that from happening, grappling with potentially deadly doubts.
If you find a person who fits the description to a T, you might be a little bit hesitant to search that person. And that's not what a policeman needs.
And good kids walking the streets bitter and angry.
When they stop and frisk you and all that harass and stuff, they just make more anger and it's more violence.
Welcome to a divided community. A community where a crisis within a crisis is changing some fundamental attitudes. Here there is less confidence in and among the police, while gang members bolster their bravado.
Superior Court Judge Cortland Mathers brought the term stop and search to the front page in late August when he dismissed gun charges against a Roxbury man, calling Boston police search and seizure tactics illegal. Police say the impact on the street was immediate. Are the kids different now?
A lot bolder, a lot wiser. Saying you can't do this, I have my constitutional rights, I'll sue you, I'll own your house.
Well, a lot of these kids have gotten very arrogant.
Gangs is gonna get bigger, tougher, and worse. The police can't even stop the gangs of today.
A lot of these kids have gotten very bold. You can see how bold they've gotten.
Like this, there been times that shots been fired up here, the police been right there, but they was too scared to go investigate.
I mean, the way they talk to police officers.
What's that dude's name? William Celeste telling all that he's stopping the violence. He really ain't. He ain't doing nothing. Straight up to you, punk.
They have no respect for anybody. They just don't care, and they think they can do anything they want in this community, and we're going to show them they can't. But we need the community behind us to do it.
In fact, many street cops feel the community, the media, and the police brass are waiting for an officer to make a mistake and be served up as a scapegoat.
Stand the up! Over here!
There's a fear out there that somebody's head's gonna have to roll to appease some people, and a lot of policemen say it's not gonna be me. There's a feeling that your hands are tied. There's a feeling that people are making their names for themselves by cop bashing. People want to become somebody, and they're going to do it on the backs of policemen.
So the attitude among many in the rank and file at this point is it's not worth being
aggressive. It's not. Unfortunately for the innocent people down in Roxbury, they're the ones that are suffering.
In the middle of this tug-of-war between the cops, the Constitution, and the criminals is an increasingly vocal majority of youngsters who stay out of trouble, but who say it is hard to stay out of the way of the police.
If you have a hat, they might think you're in a gang or something, and just pull you over and just start throwing you up against the wall.
It goes like this whenever police and teens meet.
A few years ago, y'all wasn't pulling down people's pants, but just recently y'all just started pulling down people's pants, you know, putting your hands in places where it don't belong and stuff, and I don't, it's not right.
I've been on the streets of Roxbury for 17 out of 20 years, and it is not a policy that is common, to my knowledge, among police officers. It's not an acceptable policy, a department policy, and I can't help feeling that it's being overstated.
Rumor or not, the effect is the same. Among teens, there is a growing perception that police are the enemy.
The youth is getting disturbed by it, and they just be more hateful to the police officers by doing that. That's why a lot of youth just don't like police officers.
I know people they feel like shooting at police and all that stuff like that.
If the police are going to abuse you, who can you call?
Stay down. Just stay there.
You cannot afford, if you think a person has a weapon, to be afraid about a lawsuit, not search them, and then end up getting killed by that person.
Even their most vocal critics agree police should be able to frisk certain people to maintain officer safety. But those critics also say police might subject fewer innocent people to the inconvenience and embarrassment of stop and frisk if police spent more time getting to know the community. Police say their new 65-member anti-gang violence squad will make it easier for them to focus more sharply on gang members while stopping fewer black teens simply because of the baseball cap they're wearing. Rahima?
Thanks very much, Miles.
Tonight, part 4 of our special series this week, Boundaries of Fear, Crossing the Line. Tonight, a look at solutions to stop the violence.
The controversy over the police policy to stop and frisk has elevated to such a level that many feel it now contributes to the rising death statistics. And as Miles O'Brien reports, the challenge now is to find some common ground.
I know a lot of my friends that don't like the stop and frisk. It's like the cops got him at the corner.
It is art imitating life. Edwin Dubé's pencil depicts a common scene in the neighborhoods where he lives and goes to high school.
They might not be like carrying any weapon, and then a cop just pull up over by the street and then start searching them in front of their friends and all. That's kind of embarrassing right there.
But for many parents in this community, tangible fear overrides possible embarrassment.
We have to do something about it because we're in a very difficult situation. I'm tired of seeing people killing each other. I'm tired of seeing our own people killing each other.
I really think that the stop and search is a good idea if it's going to prevent any killing.
Would the end ever justify the means?
What about the constitutional rights of the kids that are dead?
Boston police say they don't need to violate the Constitution or the court rulings to do their job effectively. And even their most vocal critics would not say the law allows them to go too far. So the debate boils down to perception. Police must convince the community they are not ignoring the law if they are to regain the cooperation and confidence they once had here.
I think the issue here is how do we reduce that gray area as much as humanly possible.
And you are our test case, I guess?
Drop a Dime street lawyer class is one effort to define the gray area for the people most affected. Teens learn exactly what their rights are from police officers and attorneys.
Having one's pants pulled down, having one's pockets checked is not a stop and frisk.
Drop a Dime founder Georgette Watson says how teens feel about the way police treat them is at the core of the controversy.
What they seem to have problems with is the policeman's approach upon them without total explanation of why this is going on, and they just want to be treated as a human being.
They don't ask you nicely, can we ask you a few questions and stuff like that. They just order you like your puppet.
They ask you and they're nice about it. You can deal with it, but it wants them, come here, kid, come here, get against the wall, kicking you, come here, you little punk, and search you and all that. You don't like that.
The message has apparently made it to the police commissioner. In March, when he publicly embraced a report from an independent committee which examined police search policies, he admitted his officers could improve their public relations skills.
And the balance may be stop and frisk somebody based on reasonable suspicion, but then, probably just as important, if you don't have anything, you explain to that person what you did. I think that would be a good step.
The committee also suggests Boston police should improve their training on search practices at the academy and on the job. It recommends the creation of neutral locations to receive complaints of alleged police misconduct. And the committee says Boston police should mend fences with the community by training officers to be more sensitive to different cultures, placing more minority officers in minority neighborhoods, and creating a police-civilian community relations committee.
We have to get back to basics. Police have to be able to do their job with the support of the community.
So when we got a problem that is difficult or a problem with one another, all we really need to do is sit down and talk about it.
For Minister Don Muhammad, working together means meetings like this. Last summer, he mediated several disputes between rival gangs and helped channel the anger into basketball games.
We was playing against this crew we used to fight with in basketball. That crew was playing against this crew in basketball we used to fight with. It was like, everybody realized it was stupid.
The need for more recreational facilities and programs is apparent to people like Charlie Rose.
Life is much cheaper now than it was a few years ago.
As head of the city's recreation programs, Rose understands where money should be spent to reduce the violence. He doesn't believe the bloodshed this fall and winter is linked to stop and frisk. He reminds us the trouble started when the successful summer Boston youth campaign ended in September.
What we're trying to do is figure out a way to keep the youth campaign going year-round, have mentorship programs. I think we need to create year-round jobs. I think we need, give me 500 jobs, and I'll get 500 kids from a lot of these tough neighborhoods tomorrow.
But in those tough neighborhoods, cynicism has a deep foothold.
Jobs, we got jobs.
Jobs aren't the answer?
Nope.
What is the answer?
Ain't no answer. We just gonna keep on doing it, and 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 doing it. Ain't no stopping us.
But Edwin Dubé won't accept that. He envisions this scene. Gang members laying down their arms, proclaiming peace. Can life imitate art?
I've shown this to all my friends. They're like, this is a real good drawing and all that, but I don't think all them gangs would be standing here like this and all that stuff. I said, you never know.
If we have some community support and if the finger pointing stops, if the rhetoric stops, and these so-called community leaders come out and support us, if they care that much about their community, then maybe they want to see the body count stop too.
We're not saying that we don't want something done. We're saying that we want something done within the bounds of the law.
I didn't say the drawing was going to change somebody's mind and all that, but look at it and then think about it. It's just a start. That's why it starts here.
People on both sides of this issue agree on one thing. If the debate over stop and frisk continues, the focus will not be where it should be, on the teens who are responsible for much of the violence. As one community activist told me, as long as we fight over how to deal with this problem, we're going to find a kid dead virtually every morning. Rahima?
Thank you, Miles.
This is a News 7 special, Boundaries of Fear, Crossing the Line.
All News 7. We are breaking our usual newscast format tonight to do something a bit special and we think important. This is a city in crisis. There are parts of Boston that are in fact held hostage by street crime, and we've invited people from the community this evening to talk a bit about that. Alice Moore, you have lost a daughter to street crime in Boston.
Yes, I have.
How did it get this bad?
Well, how did it get this bad? I do not know, but I know it's very bad out there, and it's some way that we should be able to reach these young peoples. And one way, I think, a lot of them need counseling and then good paying jobs.
Well, let's talk to some young people. Are young people being reached?
Effectively, somewhat. I can't really say if they are or if they aren't.
Are the police doing the job?
No, I don't think so. That's just my opinion, but no.
And what about over here? What do we do about the problem? How do we go about starting to end the violence, stop the trouble?
I wished I knew, but I do know there's plenty of trouble out here. Plenty.
All week long here at Channel 7, Miles O'Brien of our News 7 staff has been talking about boundaries of fear, crossing the line, taking a look at the problem of street violence in Boston, taking a look at some possible solutions, examining police handling of it. Let's set up the issue.
Stand up! Put your hands behind your head. Head!
There is a crisis within the crisis here in Boston. Along with the crime has come a battle between the police and the community they are sworn to protect.
What they've done wrong and what they still continue to do wrong is to throw a blanket over the African-American community.
The controversy began last August when Superior Court Judge Cortland Mathers dismissed gun charges against a Roxbury man and used the occasion to accuse the Boston Police Department of harassing gang members with illegal searches and seizures.
These were stops without articulable suspicion. These were stops because they were young and they were black and they were there.
They just been right in the middle of the street. Police be like, pull down your pants. And I just been like, you know, the first time I saw it, I was shocked. I was like, can they really do that?
Reaction from community leaders was swift and strong.
We have a lot of young people who are being disrespected, who have done nothing to deserve it. And that's wrong.
Police say there was an immediate impact on the street.
There's a fear out there that somebody's head's going to have to roll to appease some people, and a lot of policemen say it's not going to be me.
If community leaders get up and talk as if the police are the enemy, it certainly gives sanction to gang members who feel that they ought to be able to do anything they want to do.
So far this year, the murder rate in Roxbury, North Dorchester, and Mattapan has doubled compared to the same period last year. Police are convinced the stop and frisk controversy is a major reason.
When they knew we were aggressive and they knew we were on their case and they knew we had a united community behind us, we didn't have the problems we're having.
But critics of the police department discount the link between the stop and frisk controversy and the renewed bloodshed. They say it's no coincidence that the crime wave began as the successful summer youth campaign ended.
What we're trying to do is figure out a way to keep the youth campaign going year-round, have mentorship programs. You know, give me 500 jobs, and I'll get 500 kids from a lot of these tough neighborhoods tomorrow.
Got jobs.
Jobs aren't the answer?
Nope.
What is the answer?
Ain't no answer. We just gonna keep on doing it, and 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 doing it. Ain't no stopping us.
Now, in addition to folks from the community joining us tonight, we also have a panel. Miles O'Brien of News 7 is here. We'd like you to meet Louis Alyssa from the Boston NAACP, Charlie Rose, a Boston youth worker, Judge Darrell Outlaw of the Dorchester District Court. We'll talk to him a bit about the criminal justice system. We're joined by Leslie Harris, a public defender who ends up dealing with a lot of these kids who are called into the court system on street crime. And from the Boston Police Department, someone who is quoted often, who's on television a lot, Deputy Superintendent William Sylvester. We're going to mix this up in just a moment. For now, we will take a quick break. This is Boundaries of Fear.
But we have to live life. We can't just give up and give in. You know, so I do what I have to do. I walk through the neighborhood, but I am really afraid. And there has to be another way, though, besides stopping everyone and searching.
Welcome back to Boundaries of Fear. In his report a few minutes ago, Miles O'Brien talked about the ongoing controversy over police stop and frisk. Have you been stopped by the police in Boston?
Yes, I have. I was stopped on the train for no reason at all because I was with my friends, and we looked kind of suspicious. So the train stopped, then these two officers came on the train and grabbed us, and they threw us off the train, and they started searching us, but it wasn't called for, and I thought it was wrong because they were just doing wrong things to us. They were grabbing us real hard, throwing us around, and I felt like hitting one of the officers, but I knew if I hit them, I would have got in trouble or something, or I could have got arrested, so I just stayed calm.
Deputy Superintendent Sylvester, how hard does the police department have to push to deal with the problem?
I think under the law they have to push very hard. I think the problem is very bad out there. In this young man's case here, I doubt if he got stopped by Boston police. I think it must have been MBTA police officers because we don't work the T.
Anybody think the police go too far? Yes, go ahead.
I think the police go too far because we are victims of this community because not everyone in this, not all the youth in Roxbury, Mattapan, Dorchester are part of gang, and we are victims because the police always trying to search other innocent kids, you know, so I don't think that's a problem to the superintendent right there.
R.D., I think we have a different problem.
Louis Elisa, yes.
The question is not how far they have to push. The question is when do they have to push. In the case where a person is grabbed, what's the probable cause? What are the grounds for the immediate grounds of suspicion which gives them the threshold right of inquiry to begin to touch or manhandle anyone? The question is whether or not that serves a purpose in order to get to the root of the problem, which is not necessarily young people, but what motivates these young people to be involved in crime. No one has yet addressed roughing up drug dealers or the gun traffickers, and I want to know why we're focusing on young people who say they're not involved in situations, and we've not gone after the people who are creating the base of the problem.
Anybody?
Look, I kind of agree.
Yes,
I kind of agree with Louis, and I agree. I agree that innocent people shouldn't be stopped and frisked. I agree. Sometimes some officers might go too far, but that's a small percentage of the officers that are out there working. All right, and I for one have always said that the majority of the kids in our community are good kids, well over 96% of them. But the media is the one that focuses on the bad kids. The media is the one that has blown this thing up the way it is.
And I'd like to second that. You know, I think this started some years ago with a tree or a line that had sneakers on it, and it was called a work of art. And then all of a sudden you had 100 trees with sneakers and kids imitating. And if that didn't tell people ahead of time what was going to be happening as people imitate each other, and I feel that the media feeds off of it. There's a feeding frenzy out there where everyone wants to have the show that deals with the black community.
If we stop talking about the problem, will the problem go away?
Absolutely
not. No, it will not go away. First of all, the problem is that at night there's too many white officers in that community harassing black kids. There should be more minority officers that know the community and know how to deal with the problem in the community. And in terms of Bill Sylvester, he knows the problem. He knows what has to be done. But the problem is he's worked for the city. He has to protect his job, and that's why he says some of the things he say.
I think Louis, look at that gentleman right there is the very person that when Tiffany Moore got killed wanted to get a vigilante group and take our community back by any means. Now all of a sudden he's changed his tune. And that's the type of thing I'm talking about. You can't go which way the wind blows. And he does do that.
Go ahead and respond. I form a community patrol. We worked Roxbury area. We cleaned up the drug trafficking in Grant Manor, Mandela, without his help. And we didn't hurt no one. We didn't violate no one's rights. We did a great job out there.
Down in front.
I just feel that's the problem with the community and why the problem is so big. People are blaming other people. People are pointing a finger at each other. It's not the media, it's not the police, it's everybody as a community. And if y'all don't get together and he don't get together and y'all don't combine as a unified nation, not everybody, they're still going to be killed. I mean, on live TV, you all are going to attack each other, and that doesn't look right. That's violence right there in itself, without even doing anything. So what kind of example is that making to the people that are watching?
Judge Outlaw, you deal with this in court. Your thoughts?
Well, today, in the courts, we're doing the best that we can with the juveniles and the adults that come in. You also have to realize that they've got certain rights, and one of our precious rights is the Fourth Amendment, and a person has a right to be free from illegal search, seizure, his papers, his house, and his persons, and that is not happening. If the
You're satisfied that the cases coming to your court are properly handled by the police department?
By the police department. If they aren't, then we find them not guilty. No, I mean, we take the case with the facts that they presented to us, but keeping in mind that there must be a reasonable, articulate search, reason why they made the search, and that is not happening in all cases.
Bill Sylvester, this business of stop and frisk, help us out here with this. Stand up a second. What are we talking about when you stop and frisk someone? We'll assume that the person is spreading.
First, you have to have a threshold inquiry. All
Reasonable
right.
grounds.
You talk to somebody. All right. Then, if you feel that they have a weapon, you have the right to frisk the outer clothing. You cannot go into pockets. You cannot pull down pants. The only time you can go into pockets is when you feel a hard object that you might think might be a weapon, might possibly be a weapon.
And that meets the legal. That meets the.
RD, I think we have to hear. To me, stop and search is stop this controversy and search for solutions. The young man who just came up with things, the young people are a viable and valuable part of the solutions. I think we have to get to the heart of the issue. How do we involve young people? How do we build an infrastructure of youth leadership? How do we provide jobs that Alice Moore talked about? And how do we give young people a sense of power and a sense of future that they're not getting now? If we focus on stop and search, I think we're making a mistake. I think the mayor has outlined a plan that everybody can get behind, that we can make work. No plan is perfect, but we can make it work.
I think there's a differentiation here. I mean, there's a stop and frisk, and there's a search and seizure. And that to stop and search, one must have the specific articulate facts that that time, after he inquires about the reason he's stopping a person. It just can't be one of a hunch, one of a guess. It has to be clear, articulable reasons, and that's not happening.
And one of the things I think should happen is that we should start focusing on the positive parts of our community. Yes. We should stop always having to defend or attack, as he said, each other, and let the media join with us in showing kids like this who are doing things in the community that are positive.
Let's come back to that in a moment. Boundaries of Fear will return in a moment. Back again with Boundaries of Fear. Let's talk a little bit about what we can do as a community. Charlie Rose has talked about it, Leslie Harris, Bill Sylvester. How important is a job? What's it mean to you?
These young people are very important. That's why we have the problem that we have. They see their peers making all this money on this dope and drugs. I was just downtown today at the Boston Common, and I was dismayed the fact that you see these guys selling these different vendors there. You notice that there's no minorities there. You know, I wanted to request that the mayor do something about this. Some of these kids that are not too far gone can be down there you know, getting a peddler's license and being vendors just like everybody else. Another thing I would do is I would eliminate some of these programs that he has in City Hall and start a youth department and disseminate youth workers like they're disseminating police to the streets.
In April, last month, Mayor Flynn announced the Safe Neighborhoods Plan, which basically broke down into three broad categories, talking about greater economic opportunity as a key factor, better law enforcement and coordination in the court system, and an attempt to foster community and parental responsibility. How much of this comes right down to what happens at home?
It comes down to a lot what happens at home. I mean, it starts off with the parents telling the kids what's right, you know, and they have to go out there and know what between right and wrong. You know, they have to have positive parents. That way the kids can be positive and know what to do.
The subject of jobs, Paul O'Brien with New England Telephone, you're the head of the summer jobs program this year. We talk a lot about these killings, the street violence, as being a problem in Roxbury and Dorchester, but it's really a citywide problem. It's all our problems.
It really is, and I think the summer jobs program success last year, which is I really ran it last year, not this year. Chad Gifford from the Bank of Boston is running it this year. Was very successful because it gives kids an alternative. They have a linkage between their education and something positive, and I think it enhances their sense of self-worth. And I know when I was a kid growing up in the Bronx, summer jobs helped me a lot to value my education, and I think I agree with Charlie that we ought not to be concentrating on the negative, we ought to be concentrating on the positive. We have to do 3,500 jobs.
We do have to be clear on
what was Lisa? Yes.
The jobs represent only one portion of the solution that has to take place for this process to work. That there are good young men and women out there who have jobs and are trying to do the right thing, but they basically have to pass through a street that is crime-ridden because of drugs and guns. And so you can give good kids a job, and for those who will bypass the luxury and the glamour of working as drug dealers and working as runners for these drug dealers, you know, we can get them jobs and may find some way to occupy their time. But unless we go after the problem, unless we go after that first tier of gang violence, which is perpetuated by drugs in our society, we're not going to be able to help the good kids with jobs. They're going to get their sneakers taken. The money they make is not going to insulate them from the violence that's out there. We clearly have to focus on what the problem is. And right now the problem is guns and drugs. And until we deal with that, no other program we bring in here is going to work because our young people are afraid to go to work or come home with their money after work or go to school or come home after school. So we clearly have to change what the baseline efforts are in making our community work as a whole.
Tougher enforcement?
Well, no, part of the issue is not just tougher enforcement. I agree with some of what Lewis said, but I think drugs and guns are symptoms of larger societal problems. Boston is not the only city in the country that this is happening in. Every major urban area in this country is in this predicament, guns and drugs.
But that doesn't excuse it.
Not excusing it, we're addressing it.
No, we don't address it. You see, as long as we don't address it, as long as we don't go after, no, guns and drugs are not a symptom. They're the cause of the problems in our community. That if you get the guns off the street and you pull those drugs out, you've changed the scenario.
I think that we're all talking about guns and drugs as being the main problem. I'm the director of He's Not Heavy, He's My Brother Incorporated. All of these young kids you see around here, these young men and women are part of that group. All of these young men and women come from single-parent households where the mother is a single parent in that household. All of them love their mother, but yes, they reached an age where they needed a man and would not listen to that woman they love. And I think a major problem that none of us hit on, we all talk about drugs and violence, is that the fathers of these children must return home to their children. And in addition to that, we must create surrogate families like we did here to enable these children to relate to a man of color. You know, similar to what they are, young men and women of color. And we need the fathers and the adult males to come back and take their rightful place in the family.
One more, and then we've got to take a quick break. Back here,
I disagree with that because I feel that the father should have stayed at home in the first place and that the mothers are doing a fine job. They do need help, but I totally disagree with the statement he just made.
Quick break, we'll be right back. Boundaries of Fear. Stay with us.
That's it, now we wrap up and it's over.
Back with our News 7 special report, Boundaries of Fear. Yes?
Yes, I feel that guns and drugs is the major problem. And I feel that the federal government should be employed to help our police in the cities to get rid of the drugs and the guns.
Beef up enforcement then, yes.
I'd like to go back to where we was talking about the adult male figures coming back home. I'm an ex-gang member, and the brother over there say he disagreed about, that the mother is doing a good job. This brother here ain't saying the mother ain't doing a good job. It's just the fact that, if it wasn't for an adult role model, a male role model, to come back and talk to me and show me the right way, I could be one of them 53 youths out there dead now, So an adult role model is very important, especially a male role model, to show you the guiding light and show you which way to move in your life.
Ben Haith?
Yeah, RD, it was said that there are many inner cities like ours around the country. I believe that it's important for organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League to put together a national plan. It's time. We have to do what we can locally, but it's time for them to move.
Ella Carter-Lee, what do we need to do as a community so that your daughter Yolanda did not die in vain?
Well, that's a hard question, but
well, we need to get peace, and we need to get to the children and the young children and talk to them. And I don't know, I feel that it all starts at home. If you have problems at home with your kids, then you're going to have problems in the street. If you can't control them at home, they will be uncontrollable in the streets, I feel. So I think all the safety and the role modeling and whatnot starts at home, and then it spreads abroad, you know.
How do we restore hope? How do we restore hope?
Give some kids some confidence, that they can do something with their life besides sit around in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
Give them something to do with their time, occupy
create
them.
opportunities, what she's saying, improve our education system.
Yes, right here, quickly, we're running out of time.
All right, a couple of things. One way we can restore hope for the youth, there are many organizations out there who need funding for youth. Free My People, He's Not Heavy, He's My Brother, Gang Peace, organizations who are doing positive things with youth. So, let's go out there and support these youth organizations. And these are not little organizations who sing along songs and things like that. We're real serious about what we're doing. And we do it well. So
What you've heard,
very quickly, Leslie.
What you've heard is from a number of people, ideas that need to be, a forum needs to be focused on by someone to bring these people back together and others to sit down to do some serious planning. Because
We
no
have
one's
started
wrong.
here tonight. I thank you all very much for coming. Boundaries of Fear, we leave you with this thought.
As long as we sit here and fight amongst each other as to how we are going to deal with this problem, we're going to find a kid dead every night, every day, every morning. So I think that the key to the solution to this problem is to find common ground.